Hi yogis, Alana here and welcome to my channel. Today we are focusing on some deep hip movements in the Yin Yoga practice. So this is the part 2 of another deeper hips series. So if you're interested in learning some more deeper hip movements or taking just another 30-minute deep hips class, you can check that out. I'll put the link up in the corner as well. So today we're going to be getting into some of the most popular Yin poses that are a little deeper, a little more intense. But it is still beginner friendly and accessible. I will give you some variations if you need them as well. So I hope you're ready to relax and release. We hold a lot of emotional baggage in our hips, and this should be a really great both physical and mental release for you. So find a nice comfy place in your house, somewhere that you don't have any distractions, maybe grabbing a blanket or a block, maybe just a pillow, that's fine as well. Maybe light a candle, whatever you need to do to kind of set up a nice space to release. And we will go ahead and get started. So today we're going to start in a wide leg child's pose. So usually in a child's pose, your knees are about as wide as your mat. See if you can bring them maybe a couple inches off the mat. So we're really starting and just basically jumping right into getting into our deeper hips. So you'll feel this nice in the inner hip groin area. And if you want to bolster, maybe to prop yourself up to start, we're just going to start with finding our breath and a little bit of a meditation. And just let the hands come in front of you, let your upper body sink down to the mat. Head can come down to the mat, or if you need a block to help you out, you can do that here. When you get there, rock the head side to side on the mat. And then find center and just start to notice the breath, just how it is regularly. You'll probably begin to notice your hips, especially if they're pretty tight. So if you need to readjust and bring them a little bit closer in, you can always do that. But we want to start to just work into that deeper connective tissue of our inner hips. So just breathe, follow the breath, sink into the body. See if you can relax a little bit here. And now we're going to start to find our nice yin rhythm of our breath. So that's finding an inhale and exhale that are pretty similar in length, maybe even a longer exhale. So begin to breathe deeply. It might take you a few breaths to get there. Just beginning to fill up the chest and the belly. Taking a brief pause, and then exhale slowly out the nose. So if you do have any sinus issues or colds, whatever it might be, you can always breathe in and out through the mouth. You just get a much deeper breath when you breathe in and out through the nose. So find a nice calming rhythm. Maybe you begin to feel your body kind of relax a little bit more as you find it. As we continue to breathe, you can start to repeat to yourself, I am worthy. So as we move through maybe some of these deeper movements, little discomfort, and probably some thoughts might come into your head. And a lot of times we go through life thinking we're not enough, that we don't deserve to be loved, we don't deserve to have the things we want. We don't deserve to follow our dreams. But I want you to know that you are worthy and you're able to accomplish anything that you want in life, and you're deserving of it. So as we move through, and if anything starts to pop up, that voice in the back of your head starts to come alive, shut it up. Tell it that you're worthy. We'll move through and we'll find our worth today as we open up our hips and hopefully erasing some of the negativity we might be holding in our bodies, opening it up for some positivity. I am worthy. You can even add on words if you would like, if you're working on something. I am worthy of love. I am worthy of success. I am worthy of my feelings. So sit with that for a few more moments. So from our child's pose, our first yin movement is going to be frog pose. So if you're familiar, you might know we're kind of almost there. So where we're at right now in our child's pose with the wide knees is step one. So depending on your hip mobility and how you're feeling today, you can always stay here. So this is step one for us. So if you want to come into full frog, you can come up onto your forearms, and we're simply just going to move our shins and our ankle in line with our knee. So we're gonna push them out almost like a frog. So you're probably gonna come off your mat. You can come sideways if you'd like. So this is how you should look. So depending on where your hips are, so the further back towards your ankles they are, the deeper the movement, the more up they are, a little less pressure. So you can kind of play with where your hips are. I'm gonna shift to the front so you can see me this direction. So play with it. If this is a little too much, a little too wide for you, you can always stay in that wide leg child's pose. And feet can be pointed out towards the sides. So you can grab a bolster or block, maybe lay your belly on it to help kind of support you. We want to be relaxed in our upper body as much as possible. And just begin to breathe here. We're not going to be here super long. This is a nice beginner's class, so we'll start to kind of feel this in our bodies, kind of notice what some of these poses might bring up for us. So find that rhythm of your breath. I know it's probably pretty uncomfortable. I'm doing it with you. I'm feeling all of the same things. I am worthy. Consciously breathing here. I know a lot of tough situations we kind of hold our breath, and that's a lot of times what makes us more stressed. So see if you can still keep breathing. I notice in my classes all the time that when we get into some of these harder hip openers, the breathing stops. So consciously be keeping the rhythm. And you can always readjust. You can always go back to the child's pose if this is too much for you. A couple more breaths. All right, so to come out of it, I'm just gonna prop myself up, coming up to a taller spine and walking my knees in. So let's find a tabletop here. And you can find some cat and cows. So let's inhale to cow and exhale around the spine for cat. Inhale, coming up. Exhale, release it. And one more. Inhale, coming up. And exhale, release it. Come back to center. Begin to walk the hands out slightly. Curl the toes under and find a downward facing dog. So this is a great time to bend knees, walk it out a little bit, come up to toes. Whatever might feel nice for you. And we're gonna work right into our next hip opener. So we're coming into half pigeon, which if you've taken a yoga class, you've probably done this pose before. So we're gonna start by lifting that right leg. And exhale, bring the shin right behind the wrists. So if pigeon pose isn't one of those poses that works for you, for knees, hips, whatever it might be, you can always do this on your back, and I'll show that next. So you might have your foot tucked in a little bit and up like this, or you might be more down to the ground with your leg parallel. Those are all fine variations. I always like to prop my one hip up with a block as well. My right hip seems to be a little more mobile than my left hip. So you want to find balance. You want to be nice and stable, not over to one side or the other. So see if you can use some props to maybe get you to that balance point. So find a tall spine to start. Back foot should just be right out from the hip. And then when you're ready, we'll begin to fold forward down. So you can grab props here as well for your upper body. If this isn't working for you, you're simply going to come to a seat, cross the right ankle over the left thigh, lay down onto your back, and pull back with the left thigh. You can use your right elbow, kind of push out the right knee if you'd like, and you can also be here depending on your flexibility level. So once you find your pigeon pose, find the rhythm, and we're going to begin to sink in here. So frog pose was more of our inner hips, and you can probably feel this on the outer hip. You might feel it a few other places in your hip as well. This is a pretty all-encompassing hip movement. And we'll just breathe through it. And we're finding our edge here. So in pigeon, you might start out pretty high, and as time moves and as your fascia kind of loosens up and you gain some more range of motion, you can kind of fall down into it. We don't have to rush into these poses. It's nice and soft, nice and passive. Your mind starts to take over, coming back to the breath, coming back to the mantra, I am worthy. Few more breaths, you got this. So if you're folded over, you're going to begin to come back to that tall spine. If you're on your back, we're going to come back up to a seat and meet with our right leg parallel to the front edge of the mat. So we're going to hook this on to another hip opener. So all we're going to do is roll our weight onto that right hip, and we're going to swing the left knee around. So we're coming into shoelace pose. So the left knee is trying to come over on top of the right. So I'm going to face front for you to show you. So you'll end up like this. If it's really hard to get this left knee over with the right leg like this, simply straighten the right leg, and this is the first variation of the pose to make it a little easier. You may also be noticing a hip coming off of the mat. So you might want to place a blanket or a block under one hip, or you can place the blanket under both hips to give you a little more distance for your knees. So when you find your pose, your legs may be a little more like this as well, or parallel. Just depends on how your body's created. So when you're ready, you can stay here, or you can begin to kind of work into those hips folding forward. So nice and slow, not rushing into it, and just beginning to find that rhythm. Breathing through our discomfort here. This is something we can take on and off of our mats, use it in our daily life all the time. Breathing deep, just a little bit longer here. And same goes with this one. If you need to readjust, or maybe you feel your feet kind of falling asleep, you can give them some movement. If you're folded over, beginning to rise up, and we can uncross the legs here and find some movement to release some of that intensity you might be feeling. So I like to do exaggerated windshield wipers. You can just bring the feet out, shake them out. But we're gonna come back into that tabletop and find a downward facing dog. So in your downward facing dog, walk it out. You can lift each leg, bend your knee and roll the hips open. And we'll get ready to come into pigeon on that left leg. So begin to lift that left leg long and bring the shin behind the wrists. So feel it out if you need to come onto your back. One hip might be way different than the other. Same thing, come onto your back, cross left ankle over right thigh, and come into it that way. So, as I mentioned, my left hip usually needs a little bit of a prop to kind of keep me stable and balanced. I check to make sure that right leg is right out from the hip. I find my nice balanced pose, and I slowly inch my way into it. So feel it out, listen to your body here, and find your pose that you can hold for a few moments. Begin to start breathing nice and deep, and sink into it. Releasing any tension in the upper body or your face. letting your thoughts just flow in and out, not putting any judgment on them, just returning back to your breath. Repeating, I am worthy, turning off that voice in your head. And if you're folded over, we're going to start making our way back to our hands. And you can remove any props you might have. And we're going to, if you're on your back, you can come back up to a seat. Work all your weight onto that left side and swing the right leg up and over. If not, let that left leg come straight, right knee comes over. And then you can fold into it like so. If not, you're going to come into the full expression. And if you're ready, you can find those props that you might need, either hips, ankles, whatever it might be. And begin to fold into it. Nice and slow, not rushing. Just sinking in. Using your breath as a guide. Be here for a few more breaths, sticking with it, adjusting if you need to. And begin to just come back up to that tall spine. You can unhook the legs and find some movement, whether it's exaggerated windshield wipers or any other pose that might serve you. And we'll make our way back into that downward facing dog. So find a table first and then work into the down dog. And you can lift both legs, roll each hip open, just releasing any of that tension. And when you're ready, you can find whatever movement you need. We're going to make our way onto our backs. So I'll just come down, come onto our backs. And bring the knees into the chest when you're ready. You can rock side to side here. And then grab the ankles, bring the knees out towards the armpits, and just pull. Notice how your hips feel here. And you can stay here or extend the feet up towards the sky for happy baby. If you want to rock side to side, you can. Just making sure your lower back is into the mat. You're not coming up. And release. Let the knees come into the chest. Extend the legs up towards the sky. And then allow each leg to come down to the sides of your mat. And find your Shavasana. Or if you want to come into Supta Baddha Konasana for a few moments, that's also an option. So arms can be beside you, or maybe you bring a hand to the belly, a hand to the heart, and really connect with yourself here. Maybe repeating I am worthy, feeling it all through your body. And we'll just take a few moments to breathe, to relax, to let go. So slowly begin to bring some movement back into your body, wiggling fingers and toes, maybe circling wrists and ankles. And bring the knees into the chest and just let them fall over to the right side, finding a fetal position for a moment. Taking a few breaths here to check in with yourself, maybe noticing any shifts you might have noticed, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritually, and just observing. And when you're ready, slowly beginning to push yourself up to a nice comfortable seat. Bring the hands towards center as we end. Thank you so much for practicing with me. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please feel free to subscribe and leave me any comments or feedback you have. I'd love to hear from you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day or night. The divine light in me sees and honors the divine light in you. We'll bow forward together and say namaste. Namaste. Thank you so much. I look forward to practicing with you again.